I'm Sue and this is Sue Scribes, and today I'm here to talk to you about writing realistic dialogue. So there are a few videos on here about dialogue and I haven't watched them because I want to give my own take on it without it being tainted. Sorry, someone just drove by and looked in the window, so I gave him a face. Anyway, I just didn't want to be tempted to pilfer other ideas and make them sound like my own or anything like that. So these are just a few thoughts I have on making dialogue better. I don't know if it's what people normally say or what other videos are advising, but this is my thought anyway. So I'm coming from the perspective of acting, and I used to really struggle with knowing whether a script was good. So my agent would send me a script and I'd read it and I would just struggle to know, is this a good script? Is this worth doing? Is this worth applying for? You see, with a book it's obvious. You know it's good if you want to turn the page and read on. With script it's harder because quite often you don't want to turn the page because they're not really written to be read. So it's sometimes hard to tell whether it's going to translate well to TV, and sometimes a script doesn't seem all that plausible or realistic or exciting to read, but then on camera it's brilliant. You know, when you've got great acting and great cinematography and great production values, it can be really good. And I was always looking at these scripts and going, how can I tell if this is a good script? Then I realised it was actually staring me in the face. I would read a script or read a scene to audition with, and sometimes I would really struggle to learn the lines. I would try and recite them, and then I'd look at what was written and it wasn't going into my head very well. I was saying something different to what was on the page. Then I realised that's probably fairly indicative of a bad script. I started to learn that poorly written scripts were harder to memorize. They were too repetitive. I would say a line and then the next line or a few lines down, the character was repeating the same thing but with different words. So you would stumble over those words. See, when I started working on better productions, I was sent better scripts. And then all of a sudden I found the lines were really easy to learn. And with well-written scripts, the lines just sort of make sense. What you're saying makes sense. It follows what has come before it. So the other character will say something to you, and then your response is the natural response. And it is worded in a way that feels right in your head and in your mouth and everything. So I found that all I had to do with a good script was to look over it once or twice, and the dialogue kind of went in my head very easily. The lines would come out of my mouth kind of logically and naturally. So now as a writer, when assessing my own dialogue, I maybe read it once or twice and then close the laptop or the page and try and recite it. If the words come naturally out of my mouth, it means I'm onto something and the dialogue is working. If I'm stumbling, I ask myself, okay, well, how do I want to say this? So I'll have the conversation between the characters, I might record it, and I'll see how the words come naturally to me when I'm speaking them. And often that's just so much better than what came to me before when I was sitting down silently typing. So following on from that, another thing I do to improve my dialogue and my ability to write dialogue is I read a lot of scripts. Not just any script. Read the scripts of plays and films that you actually love. Have you ever come out of a play and just turned to the person you were with and said, this makes me want to make really good stuff. This makes me want to produce great art. Try and get your hands on those scripts, because those are the scripts that are going to really enlighten you and inform you. Same with films. There are certain films that when I watch them, I'm so motivated and inspired by the quality of the dialogue. One film that really does this for me is Pulp Fiction. Maybe I shouldn't be referencing his work, but look, I mean, good work is good work. So if you have an issue with Quentin Tarantino, then maybe just pirate it, like download it illegally or whatever. But I recommend watching it because every time I do, it just gives me this feeling of satisfaction and this passion for dialogue and for snappy, good, sharp dialogue. It's like when you read a really good book and okay, so there's the moment of jealousy of like, oh, why didn't I write that? It's so good. But then there's also this moment of inspiration where you're like, I think I can write like that. Maybe I can produce something even close to that. And it's why a lot of writers end up or start out imitating their favorite writers, because they're style and their voice and their dialogue has influenced you so much that you want to reproduce that style. But I think if you keep writing, your own unique voice will percolate through the voice that you're mimicking, and eventually you end up with your own voice. And so what if it's influenced by another amazing writer? Why is that a problem? I think that that's a good thing. Read the scripts of the plays and the films that give you that feeling. So for me, it's Pulp Fiction, it's Oscar Wilde, The Importance of Being Earnest. Oscar Wilde was just genius. I mean, his dialogue is so sharp. Picasso at the Lapin Agile by Steve Martin. That's also very good, very clever writing and dialogue. What else? Girl Interrupted, that film. I haven't actually read the book, but I know the film has great dialogue in it. Juno has really good dialogue. So the last bit of advice I have for writing good, realistic dialogue is take improv classes or join an improv group if you have one nearby. First of all, it's so much fun. Secondly, it's a really good skill to develop. It sharpens your focus, hones your instinct, and generally improves your awareness of how dialogue works in an entertaining but still realistic way. It helps you learn the basics of how to progress a story, how to keep it moving, how to portray a conversation, even just the basics like not to cut it or flatten it, but how to breathe life into it, and breathe fire into confrontation or a dialogue or a conflict. When I was in New York, I did a course at the Upright Citizens Brigade. I mean, I got invaluable experience with creating improvised scenes, also with observing others creating scenes and watching why certain things work, why certain things fail. While I was there, I bought this book. It's called the Comedy Improvisation Manual, the Upright Citizens Brigade Manual. It's $25 to get it online. Even just flicking through it now, because I'd kind of forgotten all the things I had learned, but I sort of landed just on a random page, and it was talking about the dynamics of different scenes. So they have an example here of a girl having a conversation with her mother where the mother is telling her that the girl's boyfriend is dangerous, and she's like, you have a habit of getting into relationships with dangerous men. And then it sort of talks about how you're watching this scene, but then you're also saying, I'd love to see the scene with the boyfriend. We'd love to get an introduction to the boyfriend, and maybe that's a scene we want to be looking at. So then it flips. Another scene happening at the same time where you've got the boyfriend come in and he's saying, I can't believe your mom thinks I'm dangerous. I always keep the safety engaged on my Glock. Again, it's about showing, not telling, but it's sort of teaching you about how to use dialogue to create a more engaging scene. If you're looking to work on your dialogue, working on improvisation is really useful. And I know this is probably a big ask of some writers, because writers tend to be quite shy. And I know it's possibly not something that you would want to do with your time and with your money. If you have any interest at all, give it a go. I think you can learn so much from it, not only as a writer, but also your own confidence. That's really all I have. I know there are definitely more ways to improve your dialogue, but as I said at the start, I didn't look at the other videos. I didn't research this. I'm just going off my own suggestions, because I think anything else you need to know that I can research and find, you can also find. These are just my thoughts on it. But anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you so much for watching, and I really hope this does help your dialogue and your experiences writing, and I hope we can talk about it. Please leave me a comment below if there's anything you want to say about dialogue, because I'm really enjoying interacting with other authors and readers out there. I'm really enjoying our conversations and our discussions around the topics of books and of writing. Our existence as writers is so solitary, and this has given me a really, really amazing outlet. So if you have anything to say, please say it. See ya on Tuesday when I will be doing another book post. Bye!